Remember, the mics are live.
Good evening, Metro Schools families, and welcome to our Teams Live event, Thursday, January 24th, entitled Supporting Math and Literacy, Secondary Math and Literacy, Supporting Your Learner at Home. We're so glad that you've taken a little bit of time to join us tonight as we partner together and you continue to engage and support with your students and the district and your teachers so we can all walk together and find the best ways we can support your children as they continue to learn. We know that the pandemic has certainly caused a lot of challenges in different ways to our lives, but we are committed to continuing to provide the best educational experience that we can. And we know your support and involvement is so critical to ensure that that happens. I'd like to dig into the agenda tonight. We'll be here together for about an hour. So welcome again. Our first presenter was going to be Miss Jessica Slayton. She's our Director of Mathematics. She'll present for the first part, and then followed by Miss Courtney Wilkes. She's our Director of Secondary Literacy, and she'll be focusing on how you can support your student with literacy at home. We do have a question and answer in the event. If you navigate over to the Q&A, you'll see that. We are going to ask that you hold any questions that you have to the end so that the person who's presenting, they have a chance at the end to answer their question. The other reason why we're asking you to hold questions at the end is because we're so fortunate that we have some folks from our Office of Translation Services here with us tonight. They're going to be translating in real time as the presentation is being given in Spanish. And we also have translation that will be happening in Arabic. We know it's important, again, to make sure that families can connect and engage. And if that's the language that they need to access the information that's being shared, we want to make sure it's available in those languages. And in addition, if there are folks that would prefer to ask questions at the end in those languages, the translators would then be able to provide translated so that we can get those questions answered and translated back to you. So without further ado, again, we're just so glad and excited that you're here with us tonight. I'm going to now turn it over to Miss Jessica Slayton to walk us through the first portion of our presentation.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Slayton, and I'm the Director of Mathematics for Metro Nashville Public Schools. I'm thankful to have this opportunity to talk to you today about how you can support your student to be successful in his or her classes this semester. As members of the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, Courtney and I, along with our colleagues that represent the other subject areas, are committed to ensuring that there is equity in the opportunities provided to the students of MNPS. It's our goal to ensure that every student, regardless of their background or school placement, receives instruction that is high quality and aligned to the grade level standards. Today, my focus is going to be how you can support math learning at home. This has been a challenging year for teachers, students, and parents or caregivers. We have all had to navigate new online platforms, and teaching and learning has looked different than what we're used to. During this brief presentation, I will be sharing some high-level information about what you can expect in your student's math class, as well as provide some tips for how you can support their success at home, both now and in the future. At the end of my portion of the presentation, I will also share some resources that may be helpful to you. The resources will be available on the MNPS website. As I begin, I want to share our mathematical mission statement with you. We have the sincere desire to provide every student with the daily opportunity to reason mathematically, communicate their ideas with others, and learn to value mathematics through rigorous instruction. Now, when I say rigorous, I don't mean difficult. I'm referring to a balance of learning mathematical concepts, developing procedural fluency, and being able to apply mathematics to solve real-world problems. That may be a different experience than what you had as a math learner. You may remember math class as a place where you were required to memorize an endless set of steps to find answers to problems, or where you felt pressure to answer questions quickly. It may have caused anxiety. But even if you didn't have the best experience in math class when you were in school, that doesn't mean that your student will have a similar experience or that he or she can't be successful. I believe with all my heart that every student can learn mathematics if provided with the appropriate supports and meaningful instructional experiences. Historically, the idea of being good at math has been too narrowly defined, leaving many feeling like math is pointless or impossible to understand. In MNPS, we're trying to change that experience for our students. Being good at math, what I'm referring to as mathematical competence, is more than quick and accurate calculation or memorizing steps to find answers. Students can show mathematical understanding through making sense of problems in various ways or noticing patterns in mathematical relationships. Another way students might demonstrate their understanding is by creating multiple representations of the same mathematical idea, articulating clear explanations, and being systematic when approaching problems. Students can also show mathematical competence through flexible and creative thinking, something I'll talk about a little bit more later. This expanded definition of what it means to be good at math allows all students to use their own personal strengths as a means of understanding mathematics. When in math class, your student will likely see a variety of resources provided, including both materials from Florida Virtual School and other standards-aligned resources that were carefully selected to ensure that all Tennessee state standards are addressed throughout the course of the year. I can't go into specific detail about your student's classroom experience or the specific materials you will see because each teacher has been customizing their classes to meet the needs of their specific group of students. But I will talk a little bit about the synchronous or live classes because that follows a general structure that most classes will follow. The class will open with a welcoming ritual. A welcoming ritual is designed to build a sense of community and let every student know that his or her voice is valued and important. The class will then transition into interactive instruction. This period of the lesson, which is probably the bulk of the synchronous time, is a period of teacher-facilitated exploration of the content. Students will be provided with opportunities to interact with the thinking of their peers and co-construct knowledge. The lesson will likely conclude with some sort of check for understanding and then an optimistic closure. An optimistic closure is a period of reflection that looks back at the day's learning and also looks forward to how the information connects to life and may be useful in the future. Throughout the entire lesson, the teacher would incorporate engaging strategies to ensure that the instruction allows students to be active learners, not passive participants in class. This is done to support all students to be successful. This brings us to the portion of the presentation where I will share some tips about supporting your student at home. My first tip is this: support your student in developing a positive math identity. Math identity is an umbrella term that encompasses how students see themselves in relation to math. This includes beliefs about one's potential as a math learner, beliefs about how others perceive you, and beliefs about the nature of your own math abilities. Students with a positive math identity enact that identity by being highly engaged and active participants in the classroom, resulting in deeper learning and better understanding of the content. Because of past experiences, many adults and children don't have a positive math identity, but that doesn't have to be the case. As I stated earlier, Everyone is capable of learning mathematics and demonstrating mathematical competence. Each person has unique ways of demonstrating mathematical understanding, and none of those ways should be valued over others. Encourage your student to be creative and try new strategies when solving problems. Teach them to see mistakes as valuable learning opportunities, because each strategy that does not work gets them one step closer to finding the one that will. Continue to encourage them to work hard and to try different strategies to understand what is being asked of them. And most of all, let them know you believe that they can and will understand mathematics. Your belief in them will help build their self-confidence and their own personal belief that they will be successful. Which brings me to the second tip. Value productive struggle in learning mathematics. Struggling when engaging in mathematics is not a sign of weakness. It is an indication that we're working our brains to make new connections. Many adults remember struggling to memorize and replicate procedures when we were learning math, a memory that is undoubtedly negative. That's not the type of struggle that I'm talking about. That's not productive. Productive struggle is grappling with and trying to make sense of new ideas. Be sure your student knows that it's okay not to immediately understand a new idea or to make mistakes when engaging in problem solving. Encourage the use of strategies to get unstuck, such as think of a similar problem, one you understand how to solve, and try that solution method. Or draw a math picture. A visual representation often helps students make sense of the problems they're presented with. Say the problem in your own words. Restating the problem can often reveal what it's asking you to find or a possible way to approach the problem. Change the numbers to help you determine a strategy to use. If the numbers in a given problem are complex, they might divert your attention from what the problem is asking. So change the numbers to those that are more friendly, that are easier to work with, to help you determine a strategy to use. And then use that strategy on the original problem as it was given. Visualize the problem to better understand what's happening and what's being asked. Just picture it in your head to imagine what operation might help you answer the question. And the final strategy for getting unstuck is to not be afraid to try a different strategy. It's okay to abandon a strategy that isn't working and try something new. But please remember, frustration and productive struggle are not the same. If your student gets frustrated, it's okay to step away for a while or seek additional help. Teachers have regular office hours just for that reason. I will also share some resources at the end of my portion of the presentation that may help you if your student's getting frustrated with the content they're trying to learn. The third tip is to learn alongside your student. You do not have to be a mathematical expert to support your student to learn mathematics. Spending time exploring mathematical ideas and finding different ways to represent them can be a valuable learning experience for both you and your student. Encourage creative thinking. As children find different ways to represent the same idea and make connections between them, they build a deeper understanding. Additionally, showing your student that you are a lifelong learner helps encourage the perseverance they need when facing new challenges. On to tip number 4. Incorporate math concepts into everyday activities. Whether it's asking your student to determine the total number of dots on a domino or describe a pattern of shapes, colors, or numbers, games can provide a conversation starter for mathematical ideas. You can also ask your student to describe how they see the mathematical ideas they're learning in class in the real world. For instance, you can help them connect the concept of fractions or even ratios to cooking. Helping them see the relevance of what they're learning in math can both motivate them to learn and provide opportunities for them to apply their learning in new and different situations. Tip 5 is to value flexible thinking and connections more than you value speed. Though finding correct answers quickly may be an indication that your child feels comfortable with the current topic, it's not necessarily a sign of mathematical understanding. Mathematical learning is a process that takes time. As students are learning, it's important to encourage them to make connections between ideas and/or representations, and to let them know their flexible ways of thinking about mathematics are actually a sign that they understand the content at a deeper level. You might be asking yourself why that matters. What's the difference? Well, over the course of their educational career, your student will learn a large number of mathematical ideas and procedures. If they are just steps to follow, but don't mean anything, it becomes almost impossible to remember all the steps and know when to use what. On the other hand, understanding the idea or concept will support retention and also set them up for future success. Let's look at an example of how flexible thinking can help the students connect to grade level learning and also support future learning. When I was in school, and this may be the case for many of you who are watching, there was only one way to solve the problem 5 times 18. The teacher showed us a series of steps, and we spent countless hours on practice problems to replicate the process and arrive at the correct answer. Memorizing those steps was easier for some than for others. And if you forgot a step or did them out of order, you were just out of luck. There was no way to determine the answer except to listen to the advice that you should try harder next time, which isn't particularly helpful advice. The reason we encourage flexible thinking now is to help students make connections and build schema that will deepen their understanding and prepare them for future learning. So instead of starting by teaching a set of steps to determine the product of 5 and 18, we encourage students to represent a problem like the one you see on the screen. One way they might do this is with a rectangle with side lengths of 5 and 18. You see the 5 along the left side and the 18 across the top of the rectangle. The student might then choose to decompose the 18 by breaking it into 10 plus 8, which you see along the bottom. Now, of course, they could decompose the rectangle in a number of ways. It's their own choice how they want to do that. But they would then multiply the 10 by 5 and the 8 by 5 and add those two results to get 90. Now, you may be thinking that the process seems to take a long time or that it's not very straightforward. So why are we encouraging this sort of thinking? Well, this method of making sense of the problem connects to a number of other mathematical ideas, such as decomposing numbers, which they learned to do in kindergarten. So we're reinforcing and building on past learning. Area and the distributive property, which are grade level standards, which we are reinforcing, and order of operations and multiplying binomials, which they will learn in subsequent years. So flexible thinking links mathematical ideas and provides avenues for solving problems that build on what is known. So a student doesn't have to rely solely on memorization to know how to find answers. And it also sets them up for future success because as they engage in new learning, it connects to things they already know. Now, they will also learn the traditional algorithm to find the answer, but this comes later, once they already have an understanding of what multiplication truly means. Tip 6 is to make sure your student has the necessary tools to make sense of mathematics. When learning remotely or working on math assignments at home, there are a number of tools that may be useful to your student. As demonstrated in the math example I gave on the previous tip, drawing a picture to represent a math idea is a common strategy students are encouraged to use. I would recommend having a small dry erase board available for your students as they work on their math. It's also helpful to have small objects that can be manipulated to represent word problems or mathematical ideas students may encounter. At school, these manipulatives may be 2-color counters, base 10 blocks, or algebra tiles. At home, though, they can be any small object, buttons or beads, Legos, straws, or even Cheerios or pieces of candy. This is particularly helpful for younger students who need to start with concrete objects, but it can be helpful for students of all ages as they make sense of mathematics. For older students, it may also be helpful to have a calculator handy. Desmos.com has free online calculators and can be accessed from any computer or mobile device. The website allows you to select from 3 types of calculators. A 4-function calculator, which would be appropriate for students in grades 3 through 5 to check their work. Scientific calculators, which are for students starting in 6th grade. And graphing calculators, which may be necessary for some high school assignments. Now, just a caution about calculators. They are not to take the place of thinking, and students should never be reliant on a calculator to do something they cannot do themselves. And I know this session is for secondary students, but just a note in case you have younger students at home, calculator use should be minimal for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students, and students in kindergarten through 2nd grade should never be given a calculator to use. Tip 7. Emphasize math as a way of thinking and understanding, not just a pursuit of answers. We all want our students to be able to correctly answer the questions asked of them in math class or on assessments. But the process to arrive at an answer and an explanation of how and why a strategy works is just as important as the solution itself. When reviewing your students' work, ask them to explain any pictures they drew, how they made sense of the problem, and how they might explain the main ideas to a friend. Allowing them to practice talking about their ideas will support their development of deeper mathematical understanding and show them there is a purpose to mathematical problem solving. On the screen, you see a list of open-ended questions you can ask your student to help them practice explaining their mathematical thinking. How do you know that? What makes you say that? Can you think of any exceptions? Can you think of another way to represent that? What are some connections between the representations? These sorts of questions are a great way to help students think about their thinking and see that mathematics is more than just finding the answer to computation problems. My final tip, which isn't math specific, is that you should not hesitate to reach out to your student's teacher if you have a concern about their progress or would like specific information about how they are doing in class. Teachers have time set aside for office hours every week to support students who are having difficulty or who have additional questions. Contact your child's school if you are unsure about the schedule for office hours there. You can also always reach out to your child's teacher by sending a message through Schoology or email. As I come to the conclusion of my portion of the presentation, I would like to let you know that a list of resources that may be of help when supporting math learning at home has been compiled and is available on the MNPS website. The math resources are split into two types: those that support the development of a positive math identity, and those that may help you and your student better understand the mathematical content being taught. I would like to draw your attention specifically to three of these resources. The first is the How to Learn Math online course, which is the first item in the left column. This course was developed by Stanford University and is available free of cost to students of all ages and their families. Research shows that students who engage in this specific online course to build a positive math identity report more positive beliefs about math, engage more deeply in math in their math classes, and perform significantly better on standardized tests, which goes to show how important a positive math identity can be for our students. How to Learn Math is currently available in both English and Spanish. The other resources I want to highlight are in the second column and are focused on math content. Khan Academy is a free online resource that has video tutorials and practice problems for pretty much every math topic that students learn from pre-K to college. If your student is having difficulty with a concept that has been taught in class, a Khan video might be a good resource for you to watch together to learn more about the topic he or she is struggling with. The content provided by Khan Academy is available in approximately 40 languages. You can select your language of preference on the Khan Academy website. Additionally, we are very fortunate in Tennessee to have Homework Hotline as a resource for our students. Homework Hotline is an on-demand telephone tutoring service available Monday through Thursday evenings that is staffed by certified teachers who can answer questions and provide reteaching on topics that students are struggling with. Help is provided in 7 languages: English, Arabic, Spanish, Hindi, Farsi, Mandarin, and Swahili. For more information about these and the other resources referenced on the screen, please visit the MNPS website. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Courtney, who will be speaking about supporting your student with literacy development at home. But I will be available to answer questions at the conclusion of the literacy presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. Good evening. My name is Courtney Wilkes, and I'm the Director for Secondary Literacy, grades 5 through 12. I'm joined tonight by the Coordinator for Secondary Literacy, Dr. Shivanka Watts. We hope to answer some of your literacy-related questions throughout this presentation, and if you pose a question through the chat feature. Let's get started. The MNPS vision for literacy focuses on empowering students to become successful, lifelong readers and thinkers. We believe it is the civil right of every MNPS student to have the ability to read. We will ensure that all MNPS students receive the highest quality literacy instruction in order to create a culture that embraces and values authentic readers, writers, thinkers, and communicators. In order to achieve this vision, your students should be provided with daily opportunities to become immersed in text, engage in academic talk with their peers, and successfully complete tasks that allow them to utilize all the knowledge they're gaining from the lesson, unit, or text that they are studying. As we talk about ways to help our students grow into these engaged, proficient readers, writers, and thinkers, we have to briefly look at what we mean by high quality literacy instruction. When the Tennessee ELA standards, English Language Arts standards, were revised several years ago, there were 3 instructional shifts or changes that needed to be made in order to fully align curricular materials, classroom instruction, and student actions. The 3 shifts are critically important to the literacy development of all of our students in K through 12. So why are these shifts so important? Well, according to a report released by the ACT, the clearest difference in reading achievement between students who are college and career ready and students who are not is the ability to read and understand complex texts. Students need to be able to comprehend and unlock meaning from these texts in order to be ready for their next phase. The first shift, text complexity, requires students to regularly engage with complex grade level texts in their academic vocabulary. So that's what the first shift is all about. Shift 2 requires students to use evidence from texts and complex texts themselves. So where in the text itself do we find evidence to support ideas? Shift 3 expects the content to build world knowledge systematically across grade levels. The more that we can learn about, the more knowledge that we can build, and the more we have to draw from. These 3 shifts working together should allow for your students to have daily engagement in text, talk, and task in order to master the expectations of the Tennessee ELA standards. Complex grade level worthy texts must be at the core of daily instruction. Critical thinking and problem solving skills are essential for students as they must have the ability to closely and attentively read texts in a way that will help them build knowledge from complex works of literature and informational texts. So why is this so important and how can I support it at home? Well, reading is important both at school and at home. It is widely believed that academic reading and reading for pleasure work together to help make students more successful in school. Parents, you can make a big difference in the lives of your children by supporting reading at home. It's never too early or too late to focus on reading at home. Some of the benefits of reading at home include exposing students to new concepts, people, knowledge, culture, topics, and even what's happening in the world right now. This helps students to unlock understanding about the community, local, national, and the world, which is especially important right now with all that's happening. This allows students to read and process these things. It also helps students focus on how to precisely read a text to gain a deeper understanding of these topics. And it teaches students how to use evidence to support an idea or answer a question they may have. So if your students are asking questions, send them out to read and find answers and evidence in the things that they are able to find. And it supports language development and forms of expression. So of course, the more we read about and in the many different forms of expression through social media, online texts, etc., allows students to develop and help them develop their own language to express their own thoughts and feelings. And of course, it helps develop awareness and critical thinking about the world. So connecting to all of these things, you can support your student in the ELA practices at home. And just like you, we want your child to be successful in school while also practicing critical skills that will help them in their own lives and outside of school. With the right supports from your student's teacher and partnership with you at home, you should see your child finding success in different areas of social emotional learning as well, such as building community, solving problems, working in groups, building those communication skills, and of course, comprehending language, both orally and in writing, just to name a few. As your child goes through school, he or she will have many opportunities to practice and get stronger in any of these things. Your child's social and emotional health is also a major district focus. So teachers will plan to offer your student opportunities to grow socially and emotionally, as well as academically. So what can I do? What are some tips for supporting my student with their at-home learning and reading? Well, getting students to read is something to get very excited about. And when your child is interested in reading, they might find topics or authors that they love and want to learn more about. Even if your child hasn't shown their head over heels in love with reading, here are some helpful tips you might try at home to help them on their own reading journey. Try some of these to help your child from home, especially in this unique learning environment where you are probably spending a lot of time with your student. So first, make it a regular activity. Set aside time to read stories, magazines, book, even social media, as long as y'all are doing it together. Substitute this kind of reading and talking for other technology. Yes, if you can, pull them away from their video games and their TikTok and see if you can get them to read and discuss. This will also help them express thoughts about the world around them. So as students are processing and reading these things, it will help them express the things they are feeling and reading about. Engage in discussions. Ask questions that require more than a yes or no response, even if your teenager may roll their eyes at you. So for example, why do they think something? Where in the text did they find it? What do they think that it means? Does it connect to anything else we've read or discussed or watched together? And how does it make you feel? So engage in discussion around these topics as they are reading. And this is great in any language. Biliteracy is a strength. So students' language development, whether in English or another language, through reading and discussion will help them in their English courses. And stay positive. Again, not all of us love everything that we read, especially teenagers, but we can certainly learn something from it. Help your child find ways to embrace reading in different ways and at different times. Hopefully with these strategies and many opportunities to find what they like to read about, you'll find that your child will grow more and more excited about reading at home. So what can we expect this year with some student learning in this very unique virtual environment? So here are what in grades 5 through 12 your students will be using for English language arts. So of course there are the FLVS or Florida Virtual School online materials, which your students are accessing through Schoology. Likely, your student's teacher is also using supplemental texts and lessons to support that learning of the Florida Virtual School. And those will also show up in your student's Schoology and during their synchronous lesson, as Jessica had mentioned earlier. Novels, which we'll talk more about in a minute, may also be coming home with your student, whether through independent reading or something they're discussing together as a class. And if you have a 5th grader, there are also printed materials that your students should have in front of them. So we've learned some new terms this year, and one of them is asynchronous, or the independent learning that your students are doing through their Schoology course. And while I'm going to talk specifically about what it might look like in ELA, it likely is the same for their other courses as well. So each asynchronous Florida virtual lesson begins with a goal and learning objective and provides tools, resources, guidance, and offers practice to help students be successful in an online environment. Objectives are also available for students, usually at the beginning of the lesson, so they know what they should be able to do upon completion of the asynchronous lesson. As students navigate the lesson independently, they'll have a variety of tasks in which to engage, such as quizzes, worksheets, writing assignments, videos, interactive questions, etc. And at the end, there is usually a lesson assignment or quiz. So this is what your students are progressing with through the asynchronous Schoology course. So let's take a look at what that may look like visually on the screen by taking an example from a Schoology page. So here's a visual of some of the key icons or symbols that your student is seeing in Schoology. They're the same in any course on Schoology, not just ELA. So let's review a few together. So the first one is that orange rectangle, and that's the lesson. That would contain the interactive activities mentioned on the page before. So those will be what they'll start with, and there are usually a few of those a week. The next thing that you'll notice is it looks like a little paper and pencil, and that's an assignment. That should be submitted for credit. Likely that will occur after the lesson from the week. And finally, the other thing you'll probably notice is a green puzzle piece. That's usually a quiz or an assessment, and that should also be taken for credit. So that's a quick explanation of what the icons look like in Schoology for your student. And finally, another key aspect to literacy success is reading. We want our students reading often and a lot. So let's take a look at some of the ways your students are accessing text this year. So the district was able to provide novels at no cost to schools, and with proper care, they will be used by teachers in schools throughout the year. They will support the Florida virtual curriculum. They are high interest young adult fiction, and each student should be able to have 2 novels provided to them per grade level. They will be returned to the school at the end of the academic year. If these have not come home with your student yet, they may be coming soon, or you can reach out to the teacher to see how it will be used. Here are the texts by grade level. So as you can see, each grade level was provided 2 texts, and teacher leaders from all over MNPS came together to help plan for the Florida virtual lessons for the 2020-2021 school year. Using the learning topics and/or themes from the Florida virtual curriculum, these 2 novels were selected so they can be utilized to enhance student engagement and amplify the learning from FLVS. And these novels, while recommended, are to be used at the school and teacher's discretion. Please reach out to your student's teacher with questions about when and how they may be used for your own student. If your child is having a hard time reading, as a parent, you might be wondering why and what you might do to help. There are many reasons why some children experience these challenges, such as they may have difficulty making sense of sounds, pronouncing words, and comprehending what they read. They may have specific learning disabilities that make it challenging. They may need more experiences in literacy just to develop positive feelings about reading. So again, if they haven't had positive literacy experiences, they may need some more. And some are reading in a language that's not their first. So if any of these things may be the case for your own student, you should always remember that your child's teacher and principal are your support team. We know that all children do not learn or think the same, and your school is ready to help. Reach out if you'd like to have a discussion about how your child and their specific needs can be met. Here are some of the other resources and supports that you and your student can access. As Jessica mentioned earlier, these resources are shared on the MNPS webpage, and we'll try to include them in the chat later here as well. The first one was already mentioned, which is Homework Hotline, and just to add an additional note, students can get help in reading, language arts, math, social studies, science, Spanish, calculus, trigonometry, physics, chemistry, and most other subjects. Check out the homeworkhotline.info/resources or reach them directly on the phone at 615-298-6636. Limitless Libraries is an amazing partnership with Nashville Public Libraries. Students can choose from thousands of books in print, ebooks, and audio, and now they can pick them up curbside from their own school sites, coordinating through their school librarian. There are also translated titles available. Students can access Limitless Libraries through the Clever app. Check with the school librarian for your student's login and take advantage of this awesome resource today. Coming soon, January 22nd, we'll also be able to offer ebooks using the same Limitless Library login. Students can check out ebooks and digital audiobooks and either read or listen to those on their school laptop or check them out so they can read and listen to them on their own personal device. Get excited, coming soon on January 22nd. The next thing on there is Beanstack, and this works in conjunction with either Limitless Libraries or ebooks through Mac and VIA. This is sort of a progress monitoring tool where students can track their success in their minutes and earn badges and prizes. We recommend students read at least 20 minutes a day. There's currently a competition going now through January 31st. Again, this is accessible through your student's Clever app. The Project Lit community reads current adolescent literature books alongside your student and offers many events and conversations, including author talks and events. You can also get a book club up and running at your student's own school. Check them out through their Facebook page and join that community today. Finally, we've got finally, we've got Common Sense Media. This is a great resource for caretakers about how to have some of those difficult conversations about some of the content and specific texts and tips for having those difficult conversations. So if you're not quite sure how to have a conversation around, say, violence in a text or something like that, Common Sense Media has some great tips for how to hold those conversations with your teenager. So check out any of these helpful resources and supports in addition to those mentioned earlier. Thanks for joining us here tonight, and I will turn it back over to Davis so that we can open up the floor for any questions.
Thank you, Courtney, for walking us through ways that families can support their students at home with literacy. Thank you so much to Jessica Slayton for sharing similar supports and resource ideas for mathematics. It is now 6:47, and we would like to take a little bit of time to see if there are any questions that we might be able to answer. Steve, I'm going to quickly turn it over to you. What I'm going to do as we transition over to the question time is many of the resources that both Jessica and Courtney have shared will be available on the MNPS website. I'm going to go ahead and type that in the question and answer section and publish it so that folks can follow that link and navigate over, and you can see many of the resources that were shared tonight. If you have a student that's also in elementary school, we had a similar presentation on Tuesday evening, and those materials are all together at the digital tools page of the MNPS site. I would also add that there are many, many resources beyond what was just shared tonight that can help your student with Schoology, how to check grades, and make sure that students are completing their assignments. If you want to find the specific resources that were mentioned this evening, when you go to that page, if you'll just look over to the left and scroll down a little bit, you'll see them clearly identified, and you can look into more about the resources that were shared tonight. So it's that Steve, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you to see if we have any questions in the chat.
We don't have any questions at this point, but we'll wait a minute here and see if anyone has any other questions.
I think Jessica and Courtney did a great job. If I could ask both Jessica and Courtney, if I were interested as a parent in understanding or having a better idea of exactly what my kids were learning, say I have a 7th grader and I'm more interested in what they're learning in math or what they're learning in literacy, so the specific content, so I can better think about how I could support them at home. If Jessica or Courtney would be willing to maybe share some ideas about how I could follow along with what they're actually learning day to day or week to week.
I'm happy to answer that question for mathematics. Thinking about understanding what students would learn each year, you could access the Tennessee academic standards to know what the expectations for that year would be. We also have in the resources that I posted for math support, one of those resources is a set of videos developed by great schools, which explains grade level understanding and what you should expect your student to learn each year in mathematics. There are additionally some progression videos that were posted there as well on the resources page that you can watch to help you understand how certain topics might progress from year to year. So thinking about addition and how that starts in kindergarten and then how their understanding will progress each grade level. I believe there's one for addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, and fractions to help you get a better understanding of what that might look like per grade level.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. And I think those are some great suggestions. And also on the digital tools page, we did a presentation last fall on Schoology and how parents can create an account if you don't have one already. And when you go in, you can actually, in Schoology, you can set up to get reminders set up, pushed out to, say, your phone or email address. And that way you are made aware of the different assignments that your students are responsible for each week. So you can actually log in and see what assignments they have been given, what they've turned in, what in some cases they haven't turned in. And then you can engage in further dialogue about what they're learning and how you can help them make sure they're staying on track of their assignments. So great ideas, plenty of resources. Again, we're just so thankful for those of you who have taken the time to join us tonight for about 50 minutes. We're going to go ahead and wind the presentation down. This will be recorded and posted again to the mmps.org's /digital tools page. I want to personally thank Steve for producing in the background, Dr. Watson, Jill. Want to personally thank again our amazing presenters, both Jessica and Courtney, and also, of course, our translation support team that have been providing real-time translation over there in the question and answer section so that all of our families have access to the information that we've been sharing tonight. But Steve, if you're in agreement, I'm not seeing any new questions come in the chat. There was a question about PSAT resources. I'm seeing that.
I believe that question was answered privately, but we can go back and review that information if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that chat, but we've got a great many comments there.
Yeah, let me see if I can. I believe Dr. Watts answered that question privately to that individual while we were.
I can also post, I additionally provided a resource. So the College Board actually has information about the PSAT, including sample problems, practice tests, and then there are also some tutorials from Khan Academy. That's a partnership between College Board and Khan Academy. So I will post those as well for anyone who is interested in that information, thinking about the upcoming PSAT.
Perfect.
Thank you, Jessica. I see those posted and published there, collegereadiness.collegeboard.org. Great, thank you, Jessica. And with that, again, I want to thank our amazing team for taking their time, not just to provide the presentations tonight, but all the preparations that have gone into it. And again, special thank you to our translators for being with us tonight and making the content available in both Spanish and Arabic, such a critical component of our relationships and engagement with our families. So with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off early. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. Be safe and enjoy your weekend.